Welcome, Hudson Valley. This is Conor Walsh, host of In Touch, Townsquare Media, the Hudson Valley's award-winning public affairs and issues program. This week on In Touch, we have Dr. Kim Byrd-Rider, founder and executive director of Firm Water Road. Dr. Byrd-Rider unites Eastern and Western medicine and education to craft programs that can recode your body, rewire your brain, and remap your life. We discuss her time with West Point, her globe-trotting, and how you can start making steps today to realign yourself with the version of you that you are meant to be. We invite you to join us and listen to a previously recorded conversation between Dr. Kim Byrd-Rider and myself here on In Touch. Hello, Hudson Valley. You're listening to another episode of In Touch, Townsquare Media, the Hudson Valley's award-winning public affairs and issues program. We got a great episode for you guys today. Really excited about this one. With me today, I have founder and executive director of Firm Water Road, Dr. Kim Byrd-Rider. Kim, how are you?
I'm good.
And I'm really loving the whole West Point Army vibe that you got going on today, which is perfect for, talking about where you are and everything. One thing that we like to start off with on In Touch is give a little overview of who we're speaking with and organization that they're with. As I said, you're the founder and executive director of Firm Water Road, and you have this wonderful synthesis of like Eastern and Western medicine and education that has gone into creating your business and your practice. So could you go into a little bit about the holistic practices that you offer?
Well, I've been doing holistic practices for at least 30 years. And so I started in yoga. I was a professional yoga instructor I taught 25 classes a week, which is unheard of.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's totally unheard of, but that's all I did. Like I was a professional yoga teacher. And then I owned my own studio and I was doing privates. And then I realized I didn't know what I was doing because I'm working with people with real injuries like car crashes, things like that. And I'm trying to rehab that. And I have a high school education. I mean, I'm a yoga person, but I know nothing about the human body as far academically. So I decided to go back to PT school. I thought, who knows this? And then I thought, oh, physical therapists, they know everything about this. Then I will find all the answers I need in school. I bit off more than I could chew, but I chewed it.
Very good.
Graduate school for physics, I had to go back to college first. Then graduate school, it's like a 9-year process.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's like 3 years master's degree physical therapy and then a 2-year doctorate degree in physical therapy after that at Boston University. So, and I went to the University of Oklahoma for my undergrad. But it was quite a bit, and I taught yoga through all of that as well. So I probably taught 12,000 classes of yoga before I went to PT school, before I went to college. So I knew the human body. Oh, I knew the human body as how it moved. Just by watching my students.
Yeah.
I'm so glad that I did that because I was able to go into PT school with a billion questions in my head. I was that kid that was constantly raising my hand going, but what about this? And I was older, of course. I was older than everybody else. I was in my 30s and everyone was 22. But they didn't know the questions to ask because I hadn't had, that one-on-one time with a lot of people. They didn't have time to develop the questions in their head.
Absolutely.
Really is what it was. So when you get yoga, I got yoga certified, but then I went, every 2 years I would go into different styles. So do you know this different, there's like a lot of different styles of yoga?
I'm aware that they are, but I don't know them all personally.
Yeah, there's a lot of them.
I'm sure.
Well, back in the day when I was doing this, so we're talking like the late 1990s, early 2000s, there was just the big boys, the big players, Ashtanga, Iyengar. And so there was really only 4 or 5, Bikram was out there then, there was only 4 or 5 big players out there that you studied under. And so I spent like 2 years just studying each one because I had that kind of time. And I would do lots of workshops and things. You'd run into a teacher that was just an Ashtanga teacher, and they were fantastic. And so you just studied with that guy for like 2 solid years and just did everything, just worshiped the ground that person walked on and helped him out and, substituted for him and just did everything with them. And then after a while, you're like, I wonder what else is out there. And then you'd move on to another style. So I got a lot of stuff. And now there's like a plethora of styles, but they're like descendants of the big boys, of the main 5, that started as gurus from India. So the big disciplines are literally from India. They have gurus that started them who aren't necessarily the greatest people on the planet. I'm rolling my eyes because they're all coming to the surface these days as sex offenders.
Yeah.
Right?
Me Too movement kind of all along there.
They were the worst. The gurus were the
Interesting.
worst. Actually, they got caught before the Me Too movement stuff. A lot of them had been shut down in the early 2000s.
I did not know this.
Yeah, it was ugly. It was like, it was pretty blatant.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's another culture, right?
Yeah.
You're talking about another culture that is very patriarchal, and now you have power, patriarchal, men in power, total power. A guru is like a priest.
Yeah.
Right? And so they have total power over the group that they're with, and that group is called an ashram, and it's kind of I really shouldn't be going into this, but it's kind of like a cult, It's like it's got this cult vibe to it where everybody loves the guy in charge.
It easily could become that mentality.
Yeah.
Any kind of religion, any kind of study, any kind of worship could easily be distorted into that.
And admiration.
Yeah.
They just admire them so much, and they are speaking philosophy that is amazing, and so people start to worship them instead of learning from them. And then that goes to a person's head, and then they get the God complex and the power and all of that. So,
wow, that's really powerful what you just said there. Worshiping instead of learning from.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big thing across culture, all across the board at this point. Even when it just comes to your regular celebrities, like looking at an actor or a singer or something along those lines. I think many people, athletes, absolutely. It's like we got the Super Bowl coming up, so that's going to be a big thing where people are looking at that. People are looking at all these athletes. It has gone much further from that learning to really, honestly, that whole other pedestal.
They're a god.
Yeah.
At some point. And this is so off topic, but yet at the same time.
Yeah,
because we're talking holistic.
I told you this In Touch can go all different places. It is so conversational.
I'm going down the rabbit hole, so follow me. And that is because I have an Asian friend from China, and he was saying, his family's from China, and he said because they are atheists, they don't have a god, right? They're not supposed to be practicing religion, that they turn the athletes into gods, and that's why they love our American athletes. Like, they turn our American athletes into gods. When our athletes go over there, like the basketball players specifically, they're tall,
Oh,
Asians aren't that tall. Not as tall. None of Americans aren't that tall.
No.
We are not 7 foot tall.
No.
But our athletes are. But, they're 5 foot tall. So literally, you're looking at a 7 foot tall person, that is a god, physically. And they start to worship the athletes because, people are searching. They're searching for God. And if they can't find it, they'll replace it. And they'll either find a person and project it there. So I have a psychology... I have a big psychology background at Harvard, and so I went into it because of pain management. So pain management has a big psychological component to it. I realized I was missing that, so I went to graduate school again to get more information on psychology to contribute. But I think the psychology component, even though I went into it for pain management for my science, physical therapy, I'm finding that it really lends itself to the holistic world.
Yeah.
When you look at why are people searching for God replacements? Or here's a good one, they become God. And that's a God complex. I mean, I'm God, I'm the best, which is so easy. That's a trap we're all in, right?
Yeah.
I'm the center. Because really, all you can see is your world, so I must be the center of it.
Yeah.
And it's like, not really.
But it's crazy. You can easily get lost into something like that.
Absolutely.
So to be able to have the background that you have, to be able to look into studying the minds, studying the bodies, it really lends into each other. So many places and so many things will try to treat each one separately, but what you do is look at it all together. You look at it as one thing, as I think it should be. And fortunately, a number of people I've talked to on the show believe as well. So that's great.
That it should be more holistic. Oh, well,
that it's more together.
In that direction.
And that's fantastic.
Yeah.
And I think that's the way to look at it. So
we got it from physicians.
Yeah.
I mean, look at the doctors. What they do is they specialize. Well, they have to because the body is so complex. If you want to know about the heart, you have to specialize in the heart to really know every aspect of it. But just because it works for physicians doesn't mean it works for that's not the way all of us should be doing business. And there are family medicine doctors that do everything, but they can't know everything about everything. So they end up specializing, but then we end up separating everything, and you go to a PT for your exercise program. You go to a psychologist for your mental program. You go to, and it's like, no one has that much time in a day.
Time or money, honestly.
Or money.
Yeah.
Money is the big one, too.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't have time or money to do that.
Yeah.
So and the truth is they all integrate together. They're actually one. You are one unit.
Yes.
You are not a brain and a body. The two cannot exist without each other.
That'd be really awkward if it did.
It would be, wouldn't it? But kind of cool. But that's what we do and I can't, here's the thing is when somebody comes in with pain, so yeah, I'm working at West Point with the cadets, but everything I say here is my opinion, not their opinion. I was told that I needed to say that. So
Getting that out of the way.
I'm just going to get that out of the way.
Get that out of the way.
But when the cadets come in, you have to look at where they are mentally. Mm-hmm. And you're in the Army. You're in a different mental space than maybe a civilian is.
Absolutely.
And they're in a different space, whether they're a freshman or a senior. They're in a completely different mental space. So you have to meet everyone mentally where they are and then look at how much they've been educated on certain things, like weight training or whatever the topic is. And then you have to look and go, are they ready for this information? Because I can dump it on them and it'll just go in one ear and out the other.
Yeah.
So it's a whole analyzing process, and it really helps to have that psychology background of going, who is this person, where are they at mentally, and what process should we use here? And really, is this being... It's like the chicken and the egg. Is it coming from the body or is it coming from the mind? Well, if it's coming from the mind, it's going to affect the body.
Yep.
And then if it's coming from the body, it's going to affect... If you're not getting enough sleep because your back hurts, it's going to affect your mind.
Yes. Absolutely.
So it's this cyclical cycle there between all of those players. And I'm going to say there's more players than two. There's the brain and the body. Those are the physical players. And then the mind is different than the brain. So the mind is like your decisions and things like that. The brain is like the heart needs to beat.
Yes.
I need these hormones. I need this, I need that. Like it's the operator is the brain. Mm-hmm. And then the mind is your consciousness, let's say, like, where do I want to be in 2 years? Whatever. That the mind is in charge of that. So there's your third. Oh, these are called koshas. They're from yoga philosophy. I'm Catholic, by the way, and I just a disclaimer of people going, you're pushing Hinduism. I get that sometimes, and it's like, not really. I don't practice that. But this is from yoga philosophy, which is older than Hinduism, and they got some great information. It's not worth you should not overlook great information.
Absolutely.
About the mind and the body and how it works. Especially ancient information means they processed it for hundreds and thousands of years.
It's been around, yeah.
Maybe you should listen a little bit to what they're saying. So these are the bodies, the koshas. And the goal of yoga is to integrate them together, to bring them together. The word yoga means union. You can hear how these are the same word. Yoga, union. All of those words are the same root. That's literally what yoga means. And so you're integrating the 5 koshas, the brain, the body, the mind. And then you've got the spirit, which is the chakra system. You've heard of that. Mm-hmm. And then the soul, the bliss body is the last one. The spirit is the energy system, like your aura, your personality, your ego. Your ego's in there. The energy system you put out, your anger, your emotions, your anger, when somebody steps into your energies, like at the grocery store, when someone gets real close to you and they're angry, you're like, you step away.
You feel it, yeah. You feel it.
It's vibing off of them.
Absolutely.
And we actually know that, like from a physiological standpoint, scientists know that stress is contagious. Like literally, stress hormones come out through your skin and radiate out a certain distance from your skin. Like, I don't know what it is exactly. I think it's a foot, like 6 inches to a foot.
Jeez.
So if you're stressed out and I'm leaning over you, looking at your computer screen or whatever, I'm literally getting your stress hormones.
Yeah.
I'm absorbing them. And so that's kind of a scientific way to look at energy as well. Facial expressions, body language, all of that.
I've heard vibrations as well, vibrations that we emit at times too. I've heard that. Yes. Yeah, exactly.
The organs all have a frequency. They've checked all of that. They know what those frequencies are. And they're trying to use them for medicine nowadays. They use frequencies to break up kidney stones.
Sounds great.
Yeah, it's like they just send a frequency to the kidney stone and it bursts.
Wow.
Yeah. So frequencies are going to... Remember, did you ever watch...
What? Star Trek? Yeah.
Where Dr. Bones, he had that little...
Yeah, he had the scanner.
And he waved it over people, and then he was like, oh, well, you have this, this, and this.
Mm-hmm.
That may be closer to reality than you know. Like, he's checking frequencies. Well, the frequency of the stomach is off, and the frequency of this is off, and the computer could calculate what that equals, like stomach cancer or something, when they put all of those codes in.
That'd be great.
I think that's coming.
We're probably very close to it at this point.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Again, you're listening to In Touch, Townsquare Media, the Hudson Valley's award-winning public affairs and issues program. We're speaking with Dr. Kim Byrd-Rider, founder and executive director of Firmwater Road. Now I really want to talk about certain programs that you offer. I was looking on your website in particular, and you had certain things that really stuck out to me called Recode Your Body and Health, which focused more on the body side, but then you also had the Remap Your Life, Rewire Your Brain, and that's kind of more the mind, the soul aspect of it. So would you mind please going into those and what exactly you go through with the people that you work with in those categories?
I think my contribution is not only bringing them together, because they don't do that. Like neurology doesn't, they just show you what they got. And body people show you what they got, but they don't teach you how to integrate them all. And I think that is my expertise. And then also, I really honed after studying and studying. You wouldn't even, it would blow your mind how much I study. I'm 57 years old, and I've done nothing but study since I was 25.
But that's great.
Yeah. On both sides, because, people spend a lifetime in the yoga world, in the meditation. Or John Kabat-Zinn has spent, well, he's a physician first, but he has spent a lifetime in the meditation world. That's what he's focused on. So you can, Tai Chi, you can spend a lifetime doing one of those things well. So to be able to have your hand in those, meditation, yoga, Tai Chi, and the science world as well, you just really have to constantly be studying both worlds to get enough information in. But I love it. I don't cook. I don't go grocery shopping. I don't do plants. There's so many things I don't do. But that allows me the time to be able to do these things.
But that's good. Yeah.
I'm kind of a savant that way.
No, that's nice. No, you're able to take all these different things. Well, that's what they say, jack of all trades, master of none, but often better than a master of one.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And my one is a big one.
Yeah.
So, and I'm pulling science and holistic things together.
Well, you're bringing it all together.
Yeah.
That's what makes you the jack of all trades there.
So it takes quite a bit of energy to stay on top of those industries,
Absolutely.
Honestly, because both of them are constantly, change. My contribution, honestly, is the spirit and the soul work that I've done. So even when I was in college, we had to pick a language, and mine was Biblical Greek. So I translated the New Testament Bible from Greek into English. So I chose those kind of things for electives. Yeah. And I was able to, and then I lived in Bhutan, which is basically Tibet. Tibet got eaten by China, but the Tibetan monks, the Dalai Lama's monks, ran into Bhutan, which is kind of like a cousin to Tibet. They sit right next to each other, and they still had the monasteries there. They don't let many people in, but I was able to work at they have a hospital there that I worked at for 6 months, and so I was able to live with. It's 100% Buddhist. It's illegal to not be Buddhist.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
So how'd you get away with that?
There ain't nothing else.
How'd you get away with working there then?
So I was a volunteer at the hospital through Health Volunteers Overseas, which is a really great program. I just learned from them. I just absorbed Buddhism while I was there, which is that's an amazing culture. There's very, very different than the Western culture, right? And it's basically, like I said, the Dalai Lama's Vajrayana Buddhism, which is the Dalai Lama's Buddhism. Just saturated myself in that for 6 months and learned the things that they had to teach me about that way of life. And so I've just been learning from all of these different cultures. I'm a cherry picker. I like eating at the buffet too. I'm a buffet eater. I want a little bit of that and I want a little bit of that, and I'm going to pass on that and I'll take that. And that's how I feel about the religious studies that I do. Yeah. It's that's a diamond and that's a ruby, and that's we will send that back.
there's this saying that I've heard that no one religion in modern day has a monopoly over the divine. And I think that's a very interesting way of like looking at it, and based on what you're saying as well, where being able to look at things on a much broader scope and being able to look at it, appreciate it, see what it is from each and find those diamonds. I think that's great. And it just an everlasting learning is so good.
Curiosity is really what it is. And in psychology, that's like the most valuable asset you can have is psychology. And, I'm here to tell you, and God doesn't have a religion.
Yeah.
What religion is God? Yeah, I think he's bigger than that. And I'm going to quote Carolyn Mays, who I love. She's like, I adore her. I listen to her all the time and have for probably 30 years, is God doesn't have a religion, but the religions are the politics of God. So when you become the politics of God, and you need politics. We need the politics in this country. We need politics everywhere. Politics help us, but you have to understand they're just politics. And then you have to look at the background is God, and he doesn't have that religion. When I was in Bhutan, the most profound thing I ever heard, there was a Buddhist monk there that was speaking, and there was TV cameras, and there was probably 400 people, and so he's sitting up at the front and in his robes, and somebody says, "What do you think about the other religions?" There's a loaded question. So he sits there for literally, it felt like 30 minutes, but it was probably 5, not saying one word. It was so uncomfortable. I was like, he's got to say something. I'm feeling bad for him. Kind of a situation. And then he finally says, the religions are like boats, and they're all going to the same island. And we get too wrapped up in what boat you're on. And eventually we all have to get out of the boat and stand on the island. So, let's have some perspective here. And some of the boats are really good, I got to admit. I've chosen one I like. I vibe with Catholicism, even though they've got tons of problems, right? There's some holes in that boat, right? That we have tarred up and we're trying to fix.
I grew up that way too. I have plenty I can say about it, so yes.
There's plenty of problems. Every boat has its own problems because it is just a boat. But some boats help you at different times in your life too. Some boats are just stronger than others as far as what you can understand at that time. And so, just quit shooting at other boats. It's ridiculous.
I really, really love that imagery that you shared with that. I think that really streamlines the concept very, very well. And I really like that. So thank you for sharing that with us. I think that's great. Again, you're listening to In Touch, Townsquare Media, the Hudson Valley's Public Affairs and Issues program. We're speaking with Dr. Kim Byrd-Rider, founder and executive director of Firm Water Road. We've been speaking about the Eastern and Western medicines and practices that has gone into her practices. And honestly, this has been a great conversation about cultures, understanding, curiosity, religion, philosophy. Honestly, more than I was expecting out of this. And I love it. I love episodes like this that take us on different directions. It's like, oh, didn't expect that, but I love it. But it is so good. So we only have a few minutes left, but I want to touch on the fact, I mentioned already, you're wearing all the West Point stuff. You talked about West Point. You are currently working out of West Point right now, but you've done a lot of traveling, and that is, you're looking to kind of make a home base around here, but you really are a traveler, a nomad of sorts, if we want to go there. Gypsy, another great word. So your practice takes you just about everywhere. You do it based on contracts, correct?
I do, but every morning I say the same prayer, and if you go on my YouTube channel, that prayer is on there. Like, I listen to my own YouTube channel every morning. That's why I put it there, so I could listen to it on the way to work.
There you go.
And it has everything in it that I need, and it took me months to compile it. Anyhow, one thing in it that it says every morning is, God, open the doors that need to open and close the doors that need to close.
Wow.
And the doors you open, I will walk through. And I get some really nasty doors sometimes. But I have made that vow. And I walk through them. Like even West Point, beautiful door, daunting, intimidating,
absolutely
scary. I'm a civilian. I'm a yoga teacher civilian. Like, what do I have in common with the Army? That's what was going through my head, right? Doubts. All of that stuff is going through my head. And I'm like, and the door went wide open, and I was like, Lord, I will walk through it. You opened it. Here we go. And I walk through it, and it's the most beautiful door I've ever been through. And I love the Army people. And I'm just like, I have more in common with them than I've ever had with anybody in my entire life.
Wow.
But I would have known that if I hadn't had the courage. It took pure courage. Even my boss was in there going, because I told her this, like the first week, and she's like, you have courage.
Yeah.
And it was like, and courage is, I don't know, there's tons of definitions, like fear, but you do it anyway.
Yeah.
Kind of a thing. And that's what they're doing in the Army as well.
Yeah.
That's not easy, the job they do. They're afraid, but they have the courage to keep doing it anyway. And so I found a real identity with them, believe it or not. They're
That's
not
amazing.
like the movies.
Yeah.
They're really great people
That's amazing.
that are just doing their job and doing the best they can. And they, I admire them.
That's so cool.
I'm proud to be a part of it.
I'm glad that you are a part of it. I'm glad
too.
to have you around here.
Yeah,
Absolutely. So for people who are interested in learning more about you and what you do, like checking out your YouTube channel, as you mentioned, or any other social media or your websites, where should people go to find your information?
Well, my YouTube channel has lots of exercises and things on it, and like that. That's one spiritual thing is the prayer that, like I said, I have to have it every day. But my website is firmwaterroad.com. And firm water, by the way, do you know what that means?
Oh, actually, I was meaning to ask that. I had a note and I didn't, we got caught up in everything else. I didn't ask.
I know. Well, I didn't realize that firm water actually is a reserve of water that the engineers use for when the land goes on the highest drought on record.
Oh, wow.
They don't pull that water out until they're at high levels of drought, and then they pull out the firm water reserve. And so I just feel like what I do is that. I feel like we're in a drought, and we're getting to a really bad drought, but there is firm water out. There is a reserve.
Yeah.
And you can find those reserves. I've spent my lifetime looking for those reserves, and they're confusing, and they're isolated, but I have spent a lot of time putting the pieces together so that and that's what you'll find in my my yoga certification and any workshops that I do. You see there's 12 courses on there. Some are psychological and some are physical. But I spend a lot of time simplifying the complexities of all these philosophies and religions and science. Science is complex too.
Yep.
So I'm pulling all of those things together and trying to simplify it and make it a workable concept that you can apply in your life every day and get this job done and not have to move to an ashram, not do the eat, pray, love thing where you go to, where you go to India and live in an ashram for 7 years and remove yourself from the world. You don't have to do that. But you do have to do that to learn from one guru. But that's a big waste of time. There's, like I said, there's all of these other arenas that you have to learn from. That one guy isn't going to teach you everything you need to know.
Yeah.
Well, he'll teach you something.
Yeah.
And he'll get your boat a little further, or that is a boat. Actually, he's offering you a boat. But you got to get across the ocean.
Yeah.
And it's just gonna take more than that. I guarantee it. I know. I've been looking for it. I've been looking for the boat.
But no, that is fantastic.
I'm joking.
And I love the work that you're doing. Again, Dr. Kim Byrd-Rider, and you can find her information at firmwaterroad.com. Of course, we'll have all the links and information into the description of this episode. Kim, thank you so much for being here on this episode.
Such a great time.
This has been so good. Of course. Again, you've been listening to In Touch. We've been speaking with Dr. Kim Byrd-Rider. You can find all of her information in the link in the description of this episode below. So again, Kim, thank you so much.
You're so welcome. Thank you for having me.
This has been this week's edition of In Touch, the award-winning public affairs and issues program that runs across Townsquare Media, the Hudson Valley radio stations. We want to give a big thank you to Dr. Kim Byrd-Rider. For more information on Firmwater Road, visit firmwaterroad.com. Of course, all links and information can be found in the description of this episode. I've been your host, Conor Walsh. Until next time, stay curious, keep an open mind, and as always, I'm glad we get to spend some time